This is Rose, and you are listening to Podcastinating. And we are here today with Sean Frost, and he is our chair of Forge and also works at Washburn University, does a lot of stuff. Please tell us about yourself.
Sure, thanks for having me on. I didn't know it was called Podcastinating. I think I read that wrong when I was looking at it before, but I think this is just an awesome opportunity and a great thing for our young professionals. And I think more people need to listen to podcasts, so I'm glad that we're exploring this medium together. So yeah, I am the chair of Forge. I have been with the organization for way too long. I basically, though, I stayed in Topeka because of Forge. I went to, it was fast forward at the time, I went to a social at a hospital, which I thought was strange. I'm like, okay, I'm drinking in a hospital. This is different.
Okay. Also probably the safest place to be for that,
right.
maybe.
There
okay.
you go. There you go. Yeah. So no incidents happened, but I met a lot of people that I'm still friends with to this day, and one of them asked me, Dan Schultz actually asked me to take over the chair of the Insider series, which is like a tour of like behind the scenes businesses and stuff. It was really cool. And then he left me in charge of it. So he moved to Manhattan and was out. And so I didn't know any better, but it was one of the best things that's ever happened to me. And it's really great to be able to come back and do the rebrand and to work with awesome people like you. I'm so proud of Rose. She's just killing it with the book club and now the podcast and our social media. So I'm just excited to be here. So thanks, Rose.
Book club plug. We have a nonfiction book club that meets once for lunch and once at one of the breweries here in town, and just go over books. You don't have to read them if you don't want to. Just come, check it out. Somebody here has read it, and we will just talk and have fun. So that's kind of what that little bit's about. So if you guys haven't listened already, we did an episode with Angel where he talked about the basics of city council, what it is, what they do, how they make decisions, that sort of thing. So if you haven't listened to it, go check that out. So now we're here in the depths of Wheatfield Village, and really excited about this project, and that's coming up for a vote here on the 14th. And so you went to the very first one to talk about it. So before I ask you what you talked about, what do you do when you go in and you say, hey, I want to talk to you guys about something? Like, how do you initiate that process? That seems pretty daunting.
Well, what happened was Gabe peer pressured us into it. He totally twisted our arms and said, hey, call this number, because you call a number to get onto the agenda. But I mean, I just said, my name's Sean Frost, and I want to make remarks on this agenda item. And they were like, okay, we got you down. And so that was super simple and easy. And then we got together actually beforehand to kind of go over what each person was talking about, so we weren't repeating ourselves up there. And so that was really interesting, because Connor was super prepared, had like typed up pages of remarks, and Ty was also very prepared, and I hadn't even looked at it yet. So I was like, okay, what are you guys saying? I'll say something else. And it really, what I ended up, I guess we'll get to what I talked about later, but it was a pretty neat process. I mean, they went through, we weren't the first thing on the agenda, and so they went through like a traffic study and a lot of the details of the project and the financials and those kinds of things. And then the guy before me went up and kind of just rambled for a while. And he went over his time, and they kicked him off. I think you get 4 minutes. And then
they needed like a wrap it up button.
Yeah. They're like, all right, your time's up. And he was swearing afterwards. He said, I think they just cut me off. He said, he's like, I think you guys got the whole 4 minutes, but I didn't. And he did. He did. But it was funny. And then I went up, and Ty and Connor went, and then a couple of moms from the community came up. And I think that's more typically what you see at city council is concerned citizens. I remember I went to one where there was a lady concerned about a bicycle law and them riding on the sidewalks or something, and that they could hit people. And so it's usually a lot of those kinds of concerns that come up. So I think it was a really cool deal for us to go and speak to the council members and address that group. Okay. So, and even, afterwards too, Michelle came up and she was just like, this is amazing. You guys are changing the game. It's just so great to hear from, people that are engaged in our community, and we never get anything like this at our council meetings. So I think we made a big statement just by being there and each of us saying our different remarks.
That's awesome. And so the agenda can be just a mixture of whatever people called in to say, hey, I want to talk about this. And then if they have their own topics, those might be on there too. And then just kind of coordinate from there.
I'm not sure typically how that works. I know, so they had a predetermined agenda, and they said that the items in question were going to be open to public comment. So I don't know if they do that for a lot of things, but this was one that they'd talked about, because it's a little bit, contended, and there was an article in the paper and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So, and actually, that guy that wrote that paper said or wrote to the paper, kind of changed his tone a little bit in the meeting. He said, I agree, with all these great things that the young professionals are saying. I think it would be great for our community. I just don't think that this money should be used for it, but you can also use this money. And so that's something that I think the council's planning on doing, and I don't know, enough about.
Like you guys getting up there and talking about it, help them be able to take a step back and not decide so quickly, and to say, okay, let's think about it, see if there's some other ways to make this happen,
right,
and just take a breather.
Yeah.
So that's really good. And when you guys are talking, did each of you get 4 minutes each, or click? Okay.
Yeah, and I probably used 2 of them. I was just short and sweet, and I think Connor probably went longer. He probably used close to the whole 4 minutes, but and then Ty probably did about 3 minutes too. So it was fun. It was just really. It was a little intimidating because you've got a whole audience behind you, and you've got 12 council members looking at you pretty stone cold faced. And I said a joke actually to start it off, and I don't know if that was a good idea or not, but but it was so stiff in the room, so I was like, I'm just gonna go for it, and so I said,
I was say, what's the joke?
Yeah,
you gotta tell us what's the joke.
I said, as you can see from my abundance of hair and lack of grays, I am a young professional. And
they're like,
it kind of, I don't know. Some people didn't like it, I think, but Brendan Jensen got a good laugh out of it. So
one laugh, that's a success.
A couple people laughed, so it was good. But then I talked a little bit about like what I do for Washburn and how I travel the country and meet with alumni, and I meet with a lot of people that loved Washburn, loved their experience, but were looking to get out of Topeka as soon as they could.
Oh, yeah.
And
so let's get into that, like what you were talking about with City Council, and kind of tie those two together. So what were some of your statements and points that you made about?
So that was kind of where I got into it, and because there was a guy in Baton Rouge that I met with that said those things. He said, I went up to Washburn. He got his law degree up here, and he said, but the first opportunity I got to get out of Topeka, I was out of there. And yeah, it was hard to hear that, especially when all the things that we're doing. We're trying to keep people here. We're trying to be an importer of young people, and there's a little bit of a disconnect, I think, with just people knowing what's going on in town and all the cool things that we have as a city. But I was just saying that we have a real opportunity on our hands with Wheatfield Village to keep our young people here, because this is a mixed use space. And like my friends, I grew up in Atlanta and I went to Auburn University. My friends all work in Atlanta now, and they all flock to these parts of town. Like they all live in the same area. It's like North Kirkwood or something, but a lot of them sold their cars. They can walk to like anything that they want to, or take public transit to work and those kinds of things. And so I think it's just exactly what young people are looking for. And they've got new living spaces that'll be available to people, along with entertainment and food. And so I think just the economic side of it. Now, you know, Freddie came up and talked too, and he's the economist around here, and so great article in the paper.
Oh yeah, we shared that several days ago.
Yeah.
And so we'll repost that again, of course, because it's a great, just succinct, just summary of all the benefits.
Can we put that in the show notes? I hear people say that on podcasts.
So, write it down. Yeah. Write it down.
Right. We'll put that in the show notes. But no, anyway, so I mean, in our internship program that we put on this summer, Cody Foster talked to the interns about this project, and they showed pictures, and the people were pumped. I mean, they were like, "This is perfect." And I could just imagine people working at AE and living in those spaces and just walk in or bike into work, because it's in such close proximity to AE. But that's kind of what I said to him. I said, you know, our young people are craving something like this, and they're paying attention to this. So think about what your vote says to them as you know, a community, as our, you know, public officials. Because the other thing that came out of that meeting was Jim Klossman got up and talked about, you know, we don't really have to do this. And when we bought the land, the property taxes went way up on it. And he said that, you know, he got calls from major grocery chains and stuff like that to try to put something in there. And he said, I didn't want another box shop. I wanted something that our community would really value. And so I think we're really lucky to have someone like him making that investment in making our community great, because you can see that right off the interstate too. So to take it from the blighted state that it's in now to what they have dreamed up, it'll be a huge gem for our community.
And the possibilities are just amazing with that space. And when you're on the ground and you're driving past it and you see just the storefronts, it seems like such a small space. And like, how can you possibly fit all of this stuff in there? I mean, we've talked about that in the office and just in general. And then when we had a drone go out and do a video. So I hope everybody's seen that and shared that.
Awesome.
When that's all posted.
Yeah.
And it just shows you how massive this lot really is. And there's just tons of space, and it's really great. And it would be just a great view from the highway and just driving around. I mean, it'll just be nice. Yeah. It'll be great for the businesses that do exist right there. I mean, because they can just all share in that traffic and people just wanting to be right there. And I know traffic was also a hot issue. I just mentioned traffic.
Yeah.
Ooh, buzzword. Ooh, traffic. But it just, we've been out there a couple of times. I know I'm like totally doing a podcast takeover now. It's supposed to be the
no.
Sean show, and I'm messing it up. But we went down there at lunchtime, you know, just looking at the area and figuring out what we're going to do with the drones.
Yeah.
I mean, and it was just your normal traffic. Like, it wasn't bumper to bumper crazy, you know. And like, I know it gets crazy in Topeka in the morning when you're going to work and when you're leaving. But I mean, during that lunchtime, I mean, it just, some of those concerns I just didn't see when I was physically there. And so, so it's just really neat. So now that I went off on a tangent,
no, it's a good
get
tangent.
This going back to you.
Well, that was the whole feasibility study. Like, they had this simulated like video up there of like all these little cars going across, and I'm like, this is ridiculous. Again, because I grew up in Atlanta, where traffic is actually bad. Like if you sit at a light twice in Topeka, you're having a bad day because it's like, wow. I actually, every time I come to the chamber too, I usually end up being late because I always just assume that everything takes 15 minutes to get to in Topeka.
Yes.
and this is actually 20 minutes from my house, so I always end up here 5 minutes late. But that's just the type of commute. We've got it really easy, and this they're planning enhancements to that area to help the traffic flow. They even actually talked about that there's problems with that intersection, and it would take a lot of money to really do it right. But I think they're exploring that because they're already going to have to do construction on it. Why not, go
ahead and take care of that.
Right, do it the right way. But even I think the proposed plan doesn't have that kind of massive change to it, but it's still it would still work really well. And they simulated in the video those going to work and coming home from work times, and so there were a little bit like some bottlenecks, but it wasn't anything that like was
I want to be in my car for 2 hours.
Right, yeah.
And now I just miss my shows and have to rely on DVR, and I hope I said it.
Yeah,
that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's really cool. What suggestions would you have for people when they go this next time, on the 14th, when we all go together?
Yeah.
Do people need to call in beforehand to say, hey, we're going to be there and we want to say something, or can they just go and just sit and
Yeah,
I
think
kind of recommend?
I think just going and sitting would be a big show of support for the project. If we got forged T-shirts for them, that'd be great too.
We do.
Okay, yeah. We actually, when Fast Forward did this probably, I don't know, 4 years ago or something for the downtown redevelopment, and young people just showed up in support, and I think the audience looked a lot different than it typically does, and so it was really, really great to get different people out there. I honestly feel like I'm, and this is something that I wish I would have said more of, is I'm grateful for our city council members and our mayor, because it's pretty boring meetings, and they go do that all the time. So it's they are really truly public servants, and they're listening to people's concerns, and they have to look like they care about it, and it would be a really tough job. So I'm really, really proud of the folks that represent our community, and it's a pretty interesting process to go to. So even if people didn't want to stay for the whole meeting, if they were there for that portion of it, I think that would be a powerful statement.
And would we know beforehand when that would occur, or is it just kind of stay until it happens?
Yeah, I think it'll be, they'll have an agenda item, I would think, for it. I'm just assuming, but we should know ahead of time what that meeting's going to look like and when they can be there. But we ended up staying for the whole thing at the last meeting, and we took a 10-minute break and then came back, and there was no more comments. Everyone had made their comments, and so they're like, okay, it's time to adjourn. So came back for all of 2 minutes, I think. So, but yeah, it was neat to see all the people that came out in support of it. And then there was a few traffic concerns. That was like a mom was like, I have a 16-year-old that drives, on that road all the time, and I always see an accident around there, so I don't want to make it worse. She was just super genuine, and it was cool to hear the public feedback. But I think that they did hear a consistent message from Connor and from Ty and from us. Not that we coordinated it other than to not say the same thing.
Yeah.
But we
That's
all
correct.
kind of spoke to our experience a little bit, and
that's important, the experience, like our
Right.
personal experiences and what we want
Mm-hmm.
and what we want here in Topeka and for our friends and for, families and people visiting. I mean, that's all super important.
yeah,
And we'll make sure to, in the event on our Facebook, so you can follow us on Facebook. We've got Twitter, Instagram. Now we're going to have YouTube.
Ooh.
That we're going to have all that information in there. So if
Nice.
we know when the agenda item comes up and we're supposed to be there, we'll put that in there. Any sort of updates, changes to plans, that sort of thing will exist there.
Great.
Is there anything else that you can think of that you didn't get to say that you would like to put in the podcast now?
Not that I can.
Stumped.
Yeah, yeah, you got me.
Did it again. Brett, edit this out.
Yeah, I could do the warm up again. That was fun. So I could do a little "How Now Brown Cow" and get that out now. But,
Yes.
but no, I would appreciate whoever can make it out.
Make
I
it.
know it's in the evening and after work and everything, but it's great to see the support that we have in our community, and it's great that someone like Jim wants to invest in Topeka and make it a cool place for young professionals to live. And I mean, I think it'll be family friendly too. It's just going to be a great space for our community, and so I'm excited to have had the opportunity to go address the city council. I'm appreciative of our community leaders, and so it was fun. This has been fun.
Yay. Of course, because I'm talking.
Yeah, I get to hang out with Rose, and she's
Hey.
super cool. So
Oh, thanks.
Yeah,
Yay, more
yeah.
compliments. Love me.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming out and being on the podcast and
Yeah.
sharing your view and getting others to also care about something that's going to impact them. So
Yeah,
that is awesome. Thank
Well,
you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, everybody come out on the 14th in support of Wheatfield Village. Thank you. Bye.